My name is Emily. I'm 17, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the girl no one cared about. The burden, the outsider, the one who cleaned the house while my stepmother cried over nothing, and her son made my life hell. I grew up poor in a broken house with creaky floors and memories. My father was all I had, and then he died, just like that. 1 second alive, the next he was gone. But here's what they never told me. He wasn't just a mechanic struggling to make ends meet. He was a billionaire. And before he died, he left everything to me, his only daughter. Now the people who made me cry every night are on their knees begging for forgiveness. And I have to decide, should I give it to him? Subscribe. Click the bell icon. Don't miss a single chapter. Like if you're ready to feel every word of my story. Because this isn't about revenge. This is about pain, about truth, and about the hardest choice of all: forgive or take revenge. When I was 14, my mother died of cancer. I remember her holding my hand in hers, so fragile and cold, and whispering, "Be strong, Emily. Promise." I promised, and I tried with all my might. After she died, it was as if my father switched off. He worked every day as a mechanic in some old workshop on the outskirts of town. We lived in a small house in the suburbs of Philadelphia. A sagging fence, creaky floorboards, and the smell of coffee that my father drank all year round, even in the summer. We didn't have money for repairs, but my father always said that a house lives with a soul, not wallpaper. It seemed to me then that he was just trying to calm me down. 2 years after Mom died, Dad met Carol. She was a waitress at the diner where he usually ate breakfast before his shift. I remember the first time I saw her, tall, bright red nails, laughing too loudly. She immediately started calling me by my first name, like we were friends, but it was just a facade. At first, everything was tolerable. Then it got worse. The wedding happened quickly, less than 6 months later. As soon as the rings were on, the mask fell off. She started calling me problem, someone else's child, someone she didn't ask for. She said I should be grateful that they fed me and put a roof over my head. And Ryan, her son, almost my age, was a real torture. He was younger than me by a few months, but he acted like he was 15, not 14. He bullied me all the time, hiding my school books, calling me a poor orphan, pushing me in the hallway of the house when no one was looking. Dad didn't notice or didn't want to notice. He was too tired, too busy, too broken. We lived in constant tension. I did all the housework while they watched TV. I cooked dinner, washed, cleaned. Sometimes, lying in my room, I cried because I felt invisible. Only Dad sometimes came to me, sat on the edge of the bed, stroked my hair, and said, "You are the best girl in the world, Emily. Don't let anyone think otherwise." But one day he was gone. Simple. A car, a turn, a driver's mistake in the next lane, and it was all over. I remember that day as if in a fog. The police, the hospital, the cold office where they told me that Dad was no more. No one hugged me. No one said that it would be okay. At the funeral, Carol cried, loudly. Tears rolled down her cheeks, her voice trembling. She told everyone around her how much she loved John, how her life was ruined now. But I saw the truth. I knew it too well. It wasn't grief. It was a loss of status, a loss of support, a loss of control. And I stood there, clenching my fists, thinking, I'm all alone now. The house we returned to after the ceremony felt strange, quiet, cold. Ryan sat on the couch, silently staring at his phone. Carol went into the bedroom, and I was alone in the kitchen, where Dad usually drank his morning coffee. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted him to say again, "Don't let anyone think differently." But instead, there was only silence. A week after the funeral, I sat at the kitchen table, trying not to listen as Carol and Ryan discussed what to do next. They were whispering, but I could still hear them, wondering what to do with me. Put me in a shelter? Put me with my aunt? Or just throw me out on the street? I had already started packing my things in a backpack. Just the bare essentials, a few t-shirts, my dad's old jacket, his photo in a small wooden frame. I knew I'd have to leave soon. There was no point in staying here any longer. And then there was a knock at the door. One of the neighbors, the police, social services. But it was a man, tall, in a formal gray suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He introduced himself as Mr. Harris, a lawyer. His voice was soft but confident. He said he wanted to talk to me and Carol. "It's about your father," he added, looking me straight in the eye. "John Smith left a will, and you're in it." The words hung in the air like someone throwing a stone into still water. Carol froze. Ryan looked up from his phone. Even he stopped pretending that he didn't care. "A will?" Carol asked, her voice sounding strange, too high, too tense. "But we didn't know anything." Harris only bowed his head slightly. "Your husband, Mrs. Smith, was a man who liked to keep many things secret." He handed us a paper, an official invitation to come to his office the next day. I looked at the name printed in bold letters, Harris and Associates, Law Firm, Philadelphia. I had never heard that name before. That night, I dreamed about my dad again. In my dream, he was standing on the bank of the river where we often went in the summer. He smiled but did not come close. He just waved and repeated, "You will understand everything, baby. I promise." In the morning, I woke up with a lump in my throat and a heart that was beating faster than usual. Something inside me whispered that today would change everything. We got into a taxi because we didn't have a car. Carol was dressed as if she was going to an important meeting. Expensive shoes, neat hair, makeup down to the last detail. Ryan also put on his best sweater. No one said a word on the way. The law firm building was large, glass, with columns at the entrance. We walked inside and were shown into a spacious office that smelled of leather, books, and something very expensive. Mr. Harris was waiting for us at the desk. Next to him sat a woman in a formal suit, his assistant or partner. "Thank you for coming," he began, when we were seated. "Today, we will discuss John Smith's last will and testament." Carol tapped her fingernail impatiently on the table. Ryan twirled his pen in his hands, and I sat and hung on every word. "Before I get into the details of the will, I want to point out one thing," Harris continued, looking us over slowly. "Mr. Smith was a man of exceptional integrity and discretion. What you are about to hear today may surprise you, perhaps even shock you." He paused. I felt my palms sweating. "John Smith," he said, "was not the man you are being asked to believe." Carol snorted. "What do you mean?" Harris placed several documents in front of us. On the first page, in large letters, was written, "John Smith is the founder and owner of Smith Industries, Inc." My heart stopped. Carol went pale. Ryan dropped his pen. "Your husband," Harris continued calmly, "hid his true status. He was no ordinary mechanic. He was one of the most influential businessmen on the East Coast. The room went silent. So quietly, I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. And then Harris picked up the envelope, white, with my name on it. "And now," he said, "you have to read this." He handed me the letter from Dad, and I knew this was just the beginning. My hands shook as I took the envelope. It was thick, official, but inside was a letter from Dad, from a man who was gone. My fingers froze on the edge of the paper. I didn't know if I was ready to hear what he'd written. Mr. Harris sat in silence, giving me time. Carol fidgeted nervously with the edge of her purse, and Ryan was still unsettled. His eyes darted between the papers and my face, as if he were trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of nightmare. I took a deep breath and carefully tore the envelope open. The letter was written in his handwriting, confident, large, a little sloppy, as if he was in a hurry. "Emily, my girl, if you're reading this, it means I'm not here anymore. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything myself, but I had to make sure you grew up real, without privilege, without deception. You deserve everything, but only when you're ready for it." I paused, feeling my throat tighten. The voice was in my head, because I knew that voice so well. Dad always spoke to me like I was his little princess, even when we were poor, even when we had no food. The others waited. No one dared interrupt. "You may be surprised now. You may even be angry, but I didn't hide our true life out of greed. I protected you, so you would know the value of honesty, hard work, and love. So you would see the world as it is, and not through the glass of a car or the bars of a mansion. Everything I have is yours now. Hundreds of millions of dollars, companies, houses, everything. It's yours, not because you earned it with money, but because you were kind when you were humiliated, honest when you were betrayed, and strong when you were abandoned. As for those who lived under your roof, I know how they treated you, and I ask you not to be like them. Learn from their mistakes. Don't repeat them. I love you, Emily. I will always be with you." The letter ended. I closed my eyes. A heavy silence fell over the room. I was shaking. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I felt something inside me breaking, and at the same time, being rebuilt. Carol was the first to break the silence. "Hundreds of millions?" Her voice trembled. "John owned all this?" Mr. Harris nodded. "Your husband, Mrs. Smith, controlled the largest manufacturing enterprises in the country. Ata. He also owned real estate in Los Angeles, New York, a private island in the Caribbean, and more." Ryan went pale. He looked at me as if he were seeing me for the first time, as if I had become someone else, someone he had never understood. "So, she gets everything?" he asked quietly. Harris looked at me. "Yes. According to the will, John Smith's entire fortune goes to his daughter. You are the sole heir, Miss Smith." The words hit me like a bolt from the blue. "I'm rich? I'm the heir to an empire? Impossible. Wrong. It can't be true. Or can it?" Carol stood up abruptly. "That's absurd," she cried. "I was his wife, We spent years together, and she's just a child. Her voice broke. She couldn't accept it. Her face twisted in rage and fear. Ryan jumped up too, but not out of anger. He looked at me as if he realized he had been blind all his life. "Emily," he whispered, "I'm sorry." I stood up slowly. The world around me seemed unreal. I felt something inside me begin to change. Not my character, not my soul, but my position. I was no longer just an abandoned girl from an old house. I was an heiress, a mistress of fate, and I was not going to repeat the mistakes of the past. "I will not seek revenge," I said quietly, looking at them both. "But you will no longer decide what to do with me." Mr. Harris nodded approvingly. "What now?" I asked. He smiled. "Now, Miss Smith, you begin a new chapter in your life." The morning after the reading of the will, I woke up in the same room, in the same house, on the same bed. But something had changed. The air was different. Heavy, filled with an unrealized destiny. The dim morning sun was filtering through the half-open curtains, and in its rays, the dust swirled like little fragments of a former life. I felt like a person who suddenly found herself in someone else's body. I was rich, or should have been rich, but for now, the word had no weight. It was just a sound, just a promise. And there were voices behind the wall. "We need to talk to her," Carol was saying. Her voice was taut, like a string about to break. "She's not the kind of girl you can scare anymore," Ryan said. Judging by his intonation, he was tense, but not angry. He was thoughtful. I stood up, dressed slowly, and walked out into the hallway. They were standing in the living room. Both of them, from yesterday, tired, not prepared for what was about to happen. "What do you want?" I asked calmly. Carol came up to me. She wanted to sound confident, but her eyes were afraid. "Emily, you have to understand. We didn't know. John never told us anything. We thought he was like everyone else, that we were a family fighting for every dollar." I listened, silently, just looked her straight in the eyes. "He kept it from us," she continued. "He could have lived better. We could have lived better. But he chose to keep us in the dark." "Why?" Ryan whispered, more to himself than to me. "To protect me," I answered for my father. "So I could grow up, real, without lies, without privilege, without fake friends." Silence hung between us like a curtain before the finale, and then Carol said something that changed my attitude toward her forever. "He loved you more than us." It wasn't a question. It was pain, pure, unvarnished. Her voice wavered, her face twisted. She said it as if she herself had just realized the truth. My father did love me more, not because they were strangers to him, but because I was his light, his conscience, his only connection to who he was before the money and the masks. Ryan hung his head. He knew he was in the shadows too, not out of greed or pride, but simply because he was part of another life, a life in which my father didn't want to lose himself. But that was the first time I felt something new awakening inside them. Not greed, not revenge, but awareness. They were beginning to understand who they were and who I am. The legal formalities went on as usual. I met with lawyers, financial advisors, attorneys. They showed me houses, companies, bank accounts. They explained to me that now I can do almost everything, but I was in no hurry. I wanted to understand what I wanted. One evening, Ryan came to me, unexpectedly. He brought a bag, personal belongings. He was crying. "I'm leaving," he said. "Mom has almost packed her things. She doesn't want to be here unless you kick us out yourself. And you?" He sighed. "I don't know. I can't stay if you act like them, but I can't leave if you let me start over." His words struck me. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness for the sake of profit. He asked for a chance. "Do you want to change?" I asked. "Yes, but not because you're rich. Because I saw who you became, and I want to be at least a little bit like that." Those words were more important than any apology. The day before she left, Carol asked me for one thing: to listen to her, just once, without anger. We were sitting on the porch in the old swing that Pa fixed it in the last year of his life. She looked at the sunset, and her face was older than her years. "I didn't love you," she began. "Even when I tried to pretend I didn't love you. You were a reminder that I wasn't the first, that I wasn't chosen, that I was the second role in his life. And that's why you humiliated me, because I was afraid. Afraid that you would always be more important, that you were a connection to him that I could never replace." She paused. Then she added, "But now I understand. He didn't love you because I was worse. He loved you because you remained kind when you were humiliated, honored when you were betrayed, faithful when you were left alone." She looked at me. There were tears in her eyes. Not theatrical, real. "I don't deserve forgiveness. But if you give me even a little of it, I'll leave with it." A few days later, I got a call from Mr. Harris. "There's one last condition of the will," he said. "Your father left you a task before you can officially take possession of the entire estate." "What is it?" "He wants you to forgive those who hurt you." That was the final test for me. Not money, not power, but forgiveness. And I knew part 4 was over. It was time to start part 5. And the ending of this story depended only on me. I never thought forgiveness could be so hard. Sitting in my new home, a huge, cold mansion on the ocean where every mirror reflected my face, I felt like an outsider. Everything here was beautiful but soulless, like a museum, not a home. I woke up in a bed that cost more than our old house. Every morning a driver came to pick me up and take me somewhere I didn't want to go. I was surrounded by people who called me Miss Smith, Mistress, Heiress, but none of them knew who I really was. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night choking on my thoughts. My father was dead. He was gone. He had hidden the truth until the very end, and now I lived with that truth like a stone on my chest. One evening in particular stood out. A lawyer, Harris, came to see me. We sat in the living room lit by the soft light of the chandelier and drank tea. He was careful with his words, but he did not avoid the subject. "There is one more condition of the will," he said. "What?" I looked up. "Didn't I get everything?" "You got the right to inherit, but not the full ownership of it. John left you one last task." "What is it?" He took a letter out of his briefcase, the same one that was in my hands later. Dad's letter. "My dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've already got it all. Money, companies, houses. But I want you to remember, true wealth isn't in money. True wealth is in what you do with it, who you save, what you teach the world, what love you give. You can build a castle and live in it alone. You can buy the whole world, but if it's cold inside, it's worthless. If you want to be truly free, forgive those who hurt you. Don't talk nicely, don't pretend. Forgive for real, so that the pain is no longer a part of you." The letter ended and I sat there, unable to say a word. It seemed to me that Dad was speaking directly to me, that he knew everything. He knew that I would suffer. He knew that I would be rich but alone. He knew that I had to make this move myself. A week later, they showed up at my gate, unexpectedly, without warning. Carol and Ryan. She looked different, not like before. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had almost no makeup. She didn't hold herself as confidently as before, when she humiliated me. Now she looked lost, beaten by life. Ryan had changed too. He was no longer the arrogant guy who teased me every day. He was older, sadder. The guard told me that they wanted to talk. I didn't answer for a long time. My heart was beating too fast. But finally, I nodded. Let them come in. They entered the living room. I was sitting in a chair. My feet were bare, my hair was disheveled. Not a princess, just a woman who lost her father and was trying to figure out who to be next. Carol broke the silence first. "We know you don't have to listen to us, but we didn't come for the money. We came because we needed to tell you the truth." I looked at her, waited. "After you became the heir, I started to lose myself, started to realize that my whole life had been a lie. I thought John loved money, that he was just a man hiding his wealth for the sake of a game. But he didn't. He loved you. Only you. He loved the fact that you kept your humanity even when we tried to kill you." She paused. Tears rolled down her cheeks. They were real tears, not theatrical, not showy. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I came to ask for it, with all my heart, for what I did to you, for letting Ryan bully you, for using you as a shield between myself and reality." I looked over at Ryan. He was looking up at me. His eyes were red. I can't explain why I was like that," he began. "Maybe because I was stupid. Maybe because I didn't understand the value of kindness. But now I see. You were stronger than both of us. You were better than both of us. And I don't want to be that person. I want to change, not for money, but for you, for him." He pointed to the photo of my father I had hung on the wall. There was silence in the room, long, heavy, and then I spoke. "You can't give me my childhood back. You can't take away those years of pain, those nights when I cried because I thought no one loved me. But you can start over, not here, not with me, but on your own. You have to learn to be kind when no one is looking, honest when it's more profitable to lie, any kind of person when it's easier to hate." They nodded. "And yes," I added quietly, "I forgive you." The words came out of my throat like a breeze off the ocean, light, free. Carol dropped to her knees. Ryan closed his eyes as if he had heard a blessing he didn't deserve. The next morning they were gone. They were gone. They didn't say goodbye, but they left a note. Thank you, Emily. You gave us a second chance. We don't know if we can earn it, but we'll try. I read those words standing on the deck, a cup of coffee in my hands. The ocean roared below, the sun rose over the water, and for the first time in a long time, I felt warmth inside me, not from money, not from power, from forgiveness, from knowing that I wasn't like them, that I kept my soul, that I chose kindness even when it hurt. I picked up the phone. I called Harris. I fulfilled the condition. I forgave them. He answered softly, "Then you really became the heir, not only of the property, but of your father's spirit." I hung up. I went to the window and looked at the horizon. Father, you would be proud of me. And I went forward, not with hatred, not with pain, but with faith that good will always triumph, even if I have to go through hell first.